For the last year, so many of us have been begging, pleading for our elected officials to be boldly anti-MAGA, anti-fascist. And the response, especially from Democratic leadership, has been tepid, timid at best, and outright dismissive and disdainful at worst, right? Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in particular, like, what do you want us to do? We're the minority party. There's nothing we can do. We can write a strongly worded letter and we can have a press conference where we say we will win, but then we don't do anything except cave and capitulate over and over again. And, I said this yesterday on Facebook. There's not a day that's gone by in the last year since I realized that Elon Musk and Donald Trump were attempting to engage in an auto coup. There's not a day that's gone by when I have not thought of South Korean elected officials and what they were willing to do to stop the coup in their country. Stop it like that, very, very quickly. In the middle of the night, scaling fences and going up against armed soldiers to stop the coup. But here in the US, it's been so much hesitancy, so much underestimation of the severity of the situation. And likewise, this I don't want to risk my political future. I'm not willing to risk my political capital here at all. I don't feel enough pressure to take the risks that are necessary. And it's been so discouraging to see a lack of integrity, a lack of tenacity from our elected officials. They've been hesitant because they've been protecting their own political power and their own bank accounts pretty overwhelmingly. And yet we've seen this shift over the last couple of days since Alex Preddy was murdered. We're seeing electeds who previously were lukewarm on ICE suddenly start saying abolish ICE, screaming it, right? We saw Eric Swalwell, who's running for governor in California. Swalwell is running on a position of ICE agents, former ICE agents, should not be allowed to have state jobs in California, and they should not be allowed to have a driver's license. I've heard other people talking about how there should be a registry, like a sex offender registry for ICE agents. Now, Cory Booker and a bunch of weak-ass Democrats came out with their we're going to go ahead and give ICE this funding bump, but we just want them to have de-escalation training and cameras. And I made a video just ripping in. I was pissed. I was pissed. I ripped into Cory pretty hard. And there was a concerted grassroots pressure campaign that I've been a part of to pressure our Senate Democrats to block the funding bump that they are set to give ICE at the end of the month. And that was not going well for us. They weren't really listening. They were minimizing. We were all worried that there was going to be a repeat where the surrender Dems just caved again, especially in the run-up to the House voting on their version of the bill. We've been begging Democrats to be a united opposition party of no against fascism, and they've not been able to do that at any point up until now. And so Hakeem Jeffries said he wasn't going to vote for the funding bump, but he also wasn't going to whip Democrats. And 7 Democrats ended up voting with the House Republicans, and that bill passed. After the murder of Renee Good by out-of-control ICE agent Jonathan Ross, after ICE has been inflicting a reign of terror on Minnesota, violating the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment rights of Minnesotans, no Democrat should have been down with giving a funding bump to ICE. My congresswoman did not vote for it, but 7 of them did. And yet after the murder of Alex, this huge, massive, nationwide, international public outcry, constituents just given all the feedback, people in the streets, just massive, massive public opposition. Today, one of those 7 congressmen, Tom Suozzi, said he failed when he voted to pass the funding bill. He said in a statement earlier today, "I failed to view the DHS funding vote as a referendum on the illegal and immoral conduct of ICE in Minneapolis. I hear the anger from my constituents, and I take my responsibility for that. I have long been critical of ICE's unlawful behavior, and I must do a better job demonstrating that." So we have Tom Suozzi apologizing and saying, I shouldn't have voted for this. I regret my vote. Likewise, we have all of the Democrats, including Cory Booker, including Chuck Schumer in the Senate, saying we are united in not voting to fund DHS, to not fund ICE's reign of terror, Customs and Border Patrol's out of control, illegal, lawless behavior in Minnesota or anywhere else in this country. Huge change from just days ago when Cory Booker was like, sure, let's give them more money for body cameras. Let's just keep funding them and what they're doing. Huge, huge change. And I want you to hear me. Please hear me now. I know it's very tempting to be like, okay, sure, Tom, you're just changing your mind because everybody's mad at you. Okay, sure, Cory Booker, you're just changing your mind because Alex was murdered and there's massive public outcry against it. Yes, that's why they changed their mind. We need to understand that our elected officials, by and large, are not going to do the right thing because of their personal convictions. There are some folks in Congress who will. They're going to do it because we push them to. They're going to change their mind, make policy decisions, choose how they vote because we lead them there, because we shove them there, because they are more afraid of us than they are of whatever else, their corporate donors, whatever. It requires us. It requires us changing their minds. And in response to Alex's death, and in light of the massive public outcry, they're changing their minds. That's a good thing. I'm a little frustrated with the people I've seen online being like, of course you're changing your mind now. Yes, let people change their minds. Yeah, let them move from a terrible position to one that is actually the thing that we need them to be doing. I think if you have an elected official who's like, I regret my decision to support ICE, or I took too much of a milquetoast, flaccid position on this issue, and I am now willing to find my courage and stand up, we've got to be applauding that. We have to tell them when they're doing the right thing, as well as give them critical feedback when they're doing the wrong thing. This is not the time to be like, we told you so. No, it's the time to be like, yes, welcome to the party. Yes, okay, glad you're ready to be an opposition party. More of this, more of this. This is a good start. We need more. Keep it going. That is the only response we should have to any elected official who has suddenly decided in this moment, when it's politically expedient, when they're not risking so much political capital, when they have an awful lot of favor from their constituents for taking up this position. We need to applaud them for that. I don't give a shit what their personal feelings are about ICE. I don't give a shit if they have no moral compass whatsoever. If they are taking up the position, members of Congress are a tool that we leverage to help defend democracy. If they're not willing to be morally, functionally an opposition party because they know it's the right thing to do, then if they do it because it's the politically expedient thing to do, great, let's use that. Several days ago, my congresswoman and a number of other Democrats introduced articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. And we heard from several other Democrats like, this is performative, this is going to go nowhere, this is pointless, this is a distraction, this is risky for us politically. Why are you doing this? Why are you making a stink? Why are you ruffling feathers? But now how the tide has changed. Now how Democratic electeds outside of the group that introduced these articles are changing their tune.
Kristi Noem has forfeited her right to lead, and I'm calling on her to resign as Secretary of Homeland Security, or Donald Trump to do the right thing and just fire her. And if not, she must be removed or impeached. And Gregory Bovino, who has helped lead and defend and escalate these operations, should also be fired.
It's terrible that it took another American citizen being murdered in the street by a DHS agent. But that's where we are right now. And I want us to understand that our job now is to continue to pressure and leverage our elected officials. We need them to be an opposition party. It seems like on some level they're starting to be that now. And again, I don't really care if that's not because of their convictions for most of them. I don't care how much they are craven Gavin Newsom-esque politicians. I don't care if they are doing the right thing right now. If they are taking up the correct position, we've got to support them. In fact, if it is because of their political ambitions, then the only thing that's going to cause them to do what is right in the moment is massive public pressure, particularly from constituents. So we have to keep it up. We are operating in reality. We're operating with the elected officials that we have, not the fantasy, sacrificial, tenacious Korean elected officials that Korea got and we wish we had here. Cool. We have these guys for our members of Congress. How do we make the best with what we have? How do we keep the pressure on? How do we keep pushing them in the right direction? Because they do have some power. They can help shift momentum. They can obstruct the awful things that the Republicans want to do. By the way, the Republicans came out 12 hours ago with a statement that they were going to continue to keep their $10 billion ICE bump in this bill. They're not backing down. And we can talk about that in the next video. Because as I've been saying since February of last year, Republicans could stop this madness any day of the week. They could stop it right now today. They could have stopped it yesterday. They can stop it tomorrow. They're choosing not to. But when it comes to Democrats, better late than never. Welcome to the party. The positions that used to be radical, abolish ICE, defund ICE, are now mainstream. That's a good thing. I don't need to be edgy and fringe. I'm glad that my position on this issue is now seen as moderate. That's a good thing. Let's keep the pressure.